Hi, folks. So here we are for video number 7 in our Learning to Lucid Dream video series. This our second to last video. We're almost there, I should say. So the topic for this is going to be in dream practices, stuff you can kind of practice, within the dreams, especially when you're trying to get past, where I was for the first 15, 16 years of my practice. You're trying to get past, this fun or pleasure-seeking stages to, get deeper and more meaningful with it. So that's where I pulled these from. So first up, we have passing through objects. So this is actually even manipulated objects. This is kind of interacting with objects in general. This is pretty standard Tibetan dream yoga stuff, which is where I kind of pulled a lot of this stuff from. But for example, say you could be totally lucid, know you're dreaming, flying all over the place, maybe even teleporting to new dream scenes, but you can still walk up to a wall and put your hand on it, and that thing's gonna feel solid and real. That's what you got to start to do when you start to learn to stick your hand through it and like basically pass through dream objects. Something that I would used to find when I have a hard time sticking my hand through it is what I could do is say I would try to walk through it, but not even walk through it forward. I would walk through it backwards. So say like I would say I try to walk into it forward and I just like bounce my face off the wall because it still feels real. So a good trick here is what you can try to do is to turn around, put your back towards it, and then back up through the wall, right? And a lot of times that can kind of work. All of a sudden you're just like pop out on the other end of it. And then once you kind of do that, you can build some confidence, and then you can start trying to pass through it forward, stick your hand through it, and kind of work through things like that. Also, another thing you can do is work with manipulating objects or making things appear or disappear. So, for example, it's easier to kind of look at, say, like a trash can and make it into a smaller trash can or a bigger trash can than it is to just turn that trash can into like a full-on chair or maybe even more than that, like a person or something. And so, when you're working with your mind, you want to try to get used to first shrinking the trash can, making it bigger, then changing it into a different object. The other thing you can do is also like manipulating the environment. So something I've always like to do is I always try to jump off of something really high and fall. I don't know. I just really like that falling sensation. So oftentimes for me though is if I'm really up high, say like on a mountain or something, and I jump off, I can oftentimes have a hard time getting back up to the very top of that mountain. And so what is actually easier for me a lot of times, although this can seem like it would be more complicated, but if there's so like I'll give you an example. I was doing this recently, jumped off this mountain, plummeted down to the bottom, was awesome, wanted to do it again, was having a hard time flying up very high. But then I noticed below me there was like a little trickle of water, right? Or more than that, it was like just a really small, like miniature river, right? So when I looked at it below me, I was like, oh, you know what I'll do is I'll try to make that deeper. I try just to manipulate the environment. And so what I did is, interestingly enough, it worked. It worked really good. Is I just turned it into the Grand Canyon or something, but even deeper. I just like projected it down super deep, made it really, really wide. And now at this point, now I'm really high in the air, and then I just kind of plummeted through the canyon. So that's another little things you can try there. Also, you can work with making things appear, especially if you're trying to say define like a specific dream character. So for the longest time, I was trying to find my older son to take him flying and to do stuff like that within my dreams, and I would always have a hard time like making him appear. Right. So what I would try to do is I'd be like looking at, okay, now appear, Drayden, where's my son? And it just wouldn't really work. So what I would try to do is I try to make them appear behind me. So you work with expectation. So like you can look forward and you try to expect him to be behind you. And then you kind of can turn around and hopefully he's there. Another way they can kind of work with making people appear is you can just walk around and look for them. So what I found worked good for me is I'll just start looking through the environment and kind of just scanning through the environment, see if they pop up anywhere, looking in cars. So, down the street, all kinds of stuff like that can kind of really work good in making people or specific objects even appear. Another thing you can do here is you can interact with the dream, and this is kind of probably the one practice that really changed my perspective on my whole subconscious mind really be there and really being accessible. Because what you can start to do is if you start to talk to and interact with a lot more dream characters, what you'll find is that some of them are more there than others. Some of them will take you places, they'll lead you places, they'll show you things, they'll tell you stuff that will blow your mind. And what you quickly realize, at least, is when you're talking with a lot of them, or at least ones who sometimes you talk to them and they're just like, like they're dumb, or it's like they're like, they're just running like on a side program and they don't have anything deep or meaningful to say. But when you find ones who do, what you quickly realize is that when you're talking to them, they're giving you stuff that's outside of your perception. So it really is not coming from your consciously. It's coming from something totally outside of your conscious awareness, and can really lead to some really cool, mind-blowing kind of stuff. I mean, another thing I have a lot of fun with for some reason is like teaching other dream characters about lucidity. So I'll tell them how to do reality checks, teach them how to fly, and I don't know. I find a lot of enjoyment out of that for some reason. Okay, and then we have other stuff. So you try visiting yourself, and this was a big thing of mine when I first started, really pursuing this path in like 2013, 2014. I've never had it to where I visited myself and it really seemed like I was outside my body looking at myself, but I mean, I did get to my realm and I did look at my body lying there. I just didn't have this sense that it was really, me being in my real physical space, but it can be certainly trippy. I like to do fun stuff like trying to lie down into my body and then sitting up out of my body and doing stuff like that. It's always pretty fun. You can also set up little tests. So what I do actually, because I would have to prove to myself one day that I really did like astral project or out of body experience myself into my room. So what I do now is I have a deck of cards that I leave in there, and so next time this happens, I want to try to find the deck of cards, open it up, look at the first couple cards, wake myself up, and check it. And if those first cards are the same, by all means, count me in this group, and I'm gonna think I really did leave my body or astral project myself someplace. Meditating is also a very interesting one. It's a very common practice, actually, when you get into dream yoga stuff for sure. They say like, I forget what it is, but there's this quote, I forget, by one of the Rinpoches or one of these big dogs within Buddhism, at least, where they said like, meditating within the dream is like, I don't know, whatever, 10 times more powerful than doing it in waking life. And it's not always powerful and mind-blowing to me when I've meditated in my dreams, but some of the most mind-blowing experiences did happen when I was doing that. Where like one where I was sitting down with these people and all of a sudden like this big crowd appeared around me as I started to meditate, and I like felt like I was shooting up into the sky, and basically it got so intense that I ended up losing lucidity and kind of just coming to out of blackness sometime later. So it was pretty trippy. Also had this other one where I was just kind of going more into the crossing over thing, to where you try to get into different planes of existence or like different astral planes. I don't know what you want to call it, but had one really interesting one too, where still very, very powerful lucid dream where I had a lot of good control over things. And so what I decided to do, I don't even know where this idea came from, but I was like, I wonder if I can like rip open like the fabric of the dream. So I just kind of like reached out in front of me in the really empty space and I could grab into it, and I pulled it open almost as if I was like pulling like a TV screen apart and getting behind it. And what behind it was the spirit world. At least that's what I took it to mean. And then like I stepped through this opening, and similar again to like the meditating thing, it got so like my body started buzzing. It got too intense, and I lost lucidity. And then eventually I came to in the same dream setting again, but sometime later, and I was no longer in the spirit world. I was just in the regular lucid dream that I was in before. But anyway, really trippy stuff. A lot of stuff is possible out there. That's just a few things I thought I'd throw your way. Yeah, and so then until next time, I'll catch you on the very final episode of this introductory series I've been doing. Until then, take care. Aloha.